In the often turbulent interactions of our daily lives, few things challenge us as deeply as dealing with disrespect. Disrespect can wound us, igniting anger and frustration, and in turn, tempting us to act impulsively, actions we might later regret. Yet, what if there was a way to meet disrespect, not with resentment, but with unshakable composure and grace? What if, by following ancient teachings, you could transform these moments into opportunities for strength and respect? Stoicism, an ancient philosophy developed by thinkers like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus, holds such timeless guidance. With Stoicism, we gain more than a set of beliefs. We gain practices to meet life's challenges with dignity, self-respect, and unwavering calm. This philosophy doesn't seek to control others or demand their respect, but instead places focus on what we can control: our own thoughts, actions, and reactions. By mastering these, we inherently command respect. Each lesson we explore will build upon the last, guiding you deeper into a Stoic mindset, where the practice of calm resilience becomes second nature. Stay until the end, where we'll delve into the most transformative lesson of all. Let's begin this journey of inner mastery, starting with the first Stoic principle: keeping calm in adversity. 1. Stay calm and composed. How often have you regretted words spoken in the heat of the moment? Think about the last time you faced disrespect. What did it stir in you? Anger? Disappointment? The pull to react immediately, to defend your honor? Stoicism teaches us that in these moments, the strength lies not in retaliation, but in restraint. When faced with disrespect, staying calm and composed is the first and most crucial step. Remaining calm is not a sign of weakness, but of strength. In the face of insult, your composure speaks volumes. It shows others that you are unshaken by their words, that your self-worth is not contingent on external opinions. The Stoics understood that while we cannot control others' actions, we can control our own reactions. By doing so, we not only maintain our dignity, but often diffuse the tension. Have you ever noticed how a calm response can shift the tone of a heated exchange? How can we cultivate this calmness? Start by creating a moment of pause between the offense and your reaction. Take a deep breath, count to 3, and ask yourself, will responding in anger bring me closer to the person I want to be? The answer is almost always no. Recognize that disrespect is often a reflection of the other person's state of mind, not yours. Perhaps they are acting out of their insecurities or projecting their frustrations. Realizing this helps us detach from their words and maintain our inner peace. Another powerful technique the Stoics used was to imagine the worst-case scenario, preparing themselves for adversity. Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." By mentally preparing for disrespect or adversity, we are less likely to be caught off guard and react impulsively. When we practice this regularly, calmness becomes a natural response, not one forced or feigned. But does calmness mean inaction? Far from it. Staying calm allows us to respond thoughtfully, not impulsively. It empowers us to choose our words and actions with clarity, turning what could have been a negative exchange into a moment of growth. By maintaining composure, we embody Stoicism, showing strength in restraint. Wouldn't you prefer to be someone who, when met with disrespect, does not waver? Someone who, regardless of others' actions, remains grounded in their own values and principles? This level of self-mastery is at the core of Stoicism, and it all begins with calmness. Next, we delve into a principle equally transformative: changing your perspective on the situations that arise in life. 2. Change your perspective. What if disrespect is not a personal attack, but an opportunity to grow. Stoicism encourages us to shift our view of the events we encounter, especially when they seem adverse. By broadening our perspective, we can see disrespect not as a wound to our pride, but as a moment to test our strength and reinforce our commitment to virtue. Changing perspective means stepping back from the immediate emotional reaction and asking ourselves a simple question: how will this matter in a week, a month, or even a year? Often we find that the sting of disrespect is fleeting and will soon fade from memory. This ability to zoom out and view things from a distance is a hallmark of Stoic wisdom. Instead of allowing disrespect to anchor us in anger or resentment, we reframe it as an exercise in patience and self-control. Does reframing feel challenging? Remember that Stoicism is not about denying our feelings, but about learning to govern them. Imagine a mountain standing firm against a strong wind, unmoved, grounded, unshaken. By shifting our perspective, we develop a similar resilience. We learn to recognize that others' words and actions often reveal more about their character than ours. When faced with someone's disrespectful behavior, ask yourself, what might this person be experiencing that would lead them to act this way? This shift helps us see the humanity in others and approach their actions with empathy rather than judgment. Stoics often practiced premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils. By considering potential challenges in advance, we are less affected when they arise. When we prepare for the possibility of disrespect, we no longer fear it. Instead, we see it as a test of our inner strength and commitment to a higher standard of conduct. Changing perspective doesn't imply passivity or indifference, but rather elevates our viewpoint above pettiness and impulsiveness. It is a reminder that respect, once rooted deeply within, need not be externally validated. Think of the individuals in your life who maintain composure in the face of adversity. Do you respect them more because of their ability to rise above? In the same way, when we embody this practice, others are more likely to view us with admiration, even if they do not outwardly show it. This broadened perspective also helps us avoid clinging to things we cannot control. By focusing on what is within our influence, our reactions, thoughts, and choices, we liberate ourselves from the exhausting cycle of seeking validation from others. Herein lies the strength of Stoicism, the cultivation of an inner freedom that is not dependent on others' behavior. 3. Reflect on yourself. When faced with disrespect, do we ever pause to examine our own role in the conflict? One of the profound aspects of Stoicism is its emphasis on self-reflection. In moments of tension, rather than focusing solely on what others have done to us, Stoicism invites us to look within. Have our own words or actions, however unintentional, contributed to the misunderstanding or tension? By turning our gaze inward, we shift from blame to personal responsibility, creating an opportunity for growth. Self-reflection is not about assigning blame to oneself, but about deepening our understanding. Stoicism teaches that we are the architects of our own character, and as such, we are responsible for aligning our actions with our values. When we take time to reflect, we find clarity on how we may act differently next time, cultivating patience and awareness. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, often asked himself if he was living in accordance with nature and reason. This practice wasn't meant to berate himself, but to ensure he was on a path that honored his principles. How can we practice meaningful self-reflection? Start by setting aside a quiet moment after any significant interaction, whether it went smoothly or not, and ask yourself some key questions. Was I calm and composed? Did I respond with kindness? Was I driven by ego or by a desire to connect? Such reflection grounds us in Stoicism, and helps us recognize patterns in our behavior that may need refining. By consistently practicing self-reflection, we strengthen our self-awareness, making it easier to respond virtuously in future situations. Self-reflection also helps us identify our core values, which serve as a compass during times of conflict. When we know what we stand for, we are less swayed by the actions of others. This, in turn, builds inner resilience and clarity, allowing us to maintain our dignity regardless of external pressures. Each moment of reflection is a moment of self-improvement, where we inch closer to embodying the wisdom we seek. In a world where reactions are often swift and unexamined, self-reflection is a powerful counterbalance. When you are truly accountable to yourself, you gain a strength that no amount of external validation or approval can offer. Others may begin to see you as someone who is consistently grounded and introspective, someone whose respect is not easily shaken. And so, we arrive at the next Stoic principle, which builds on this foundation of self-awareness: the discipline to pause and resist the impulse to react. 4. Pause and resist the impulse to react. How often do we react without thinking, only to regret our words or actions later? To pause is to reclaim our power. Instead of being swept away by the emotional current of the moment, we anchor ourselves, allowing the intensity of our initial feelings to pass. In that brief pause, we can ask ourselves, is my response serving my higher purpose? Will reacting hastily bring me closer to my goal of inner peace? Such questions help us ground ourselves, reminding us of the Stoic ideal of responding thoughtfully rather than impulsively. How can we cultivate this practice of pausing? A simple technique is to take a deep breath and mentally count to 3 before responding. This small act creates enough space to break the automatic cycle of reaction. For the Stoics, the ability to choose one's response was a cornerstone of personal freedom. Epictetus once taught, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." By pausing, we exercise that freedom, moving from a state of emotional reactivity to one of mindful response. The act of pausing is also a reminder of our own power. We may not control the words or actions of others, but we control our response entirely. Choosing not to react in anger or frustration is an act of self-respect and wisdom. Have you ever noticed how someone who responds thoughtfully in a tense situation commands a certain level of respect? This strength doesn't come from overpowering others, but from mastering oneself, a true mark of Stoicism. When we resist the impulse to react, we also protect our own peace of mind. Reacting impulsively can often lead to words or actions we later regret, causing unnecessary conflict and even harming relationships. By pausing, we ensure that our response is measured and considered, preserving the harmony we strive for. The ability to pause is a skill that grows with practice. Each time you choose not to react immediately, you strengthen your capacity for patience and self-control. This discipline is foundational to the Stoic mindset, building resilience and fortifying your inner peace. As we embrace the discipline of pausing, we are ready to explore another valuable Stoic principle: using humor or a simple smile to diffuse tension. 5. Use humor or simply smile. Have you ever noticed how a small smile or a bit of humor can change the entire atmosphere of a situation? Stoicism teaches us the value of a light-hearted approach, especially in moments of tension or disrespect. By choosing to respond with humor or a calm smile, we diffuse the situation, lifting ourselves above the negativity and reminding ourselves and others that our peace is not easily disturbed. When someone acts disrespectfully, they often seek a reaction. They want to see frustration or anger. They want to feel they have affected us. A gentle smile or a touch of humor can disarm this energy entirely. Imagine someone attempting to provoke you, only to be met with a calm, knowing smile. In that moment, your response communicates resilience, signaling that you are beyond the reach of petty provocations. This is the Stoic ideal, to remain unaffected by others' attempts to disrupt your tranquility. How can we apply humor or a smile without appearing dismissive? This approach requires sensitivity and sincerity. Humor, when used wisely, is a way to acknowledge the absurdity of certain situations without diminishing others' feelings. By laughing at ourselves or at the situation's lighter side, we can create a more open, less defensive environment. However, it's important to ensure our humor is not mocking or belittling, but rather a gentle reminder not to take everything too seriously. Using humor also aligns with Stoicism's emphasis on perspective. When we allow ourselves to see the lighter side, we realize that many of the things that upset us are not as severe as they seem. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The things you think about determine the quality of your mind." By choosing humor, we elevate our thoughts, reinforcing our capacity to remain untroubled. Humor is a subtle way of asserting control over our own minds, refusing to let external negativity intrude upon our inner peace. But does using humor mean we ignore the disrespect? Not at all. Stoicism does not call for indifference, but rather advocates for responses rooted in calm understanding. When we respond with humor or a smile, we communicate that we acknowledge the situation without being pulled into it. It is a way of saying, "I see what is happening, but I choose to stay above it." In this way, humor becomes a powerful tool for maintaining dignity, transforming potentially hostile interactions into moments of grace. As we cultivate this light-hearted approach, we set an example for others, showing that dignity and peace do not require harsh words or fierce defenses. Through a simple smile, we assert our independence from others' judgments, embodying the true spirit of Stoicism. Now that we have explored the gentle power of humor, let us move on to another essential lesson in Stoicism: responding with reason, not emotion. 6. Respond with reason, not emotion. How often do we regret actions driven by emotion alone? In the practice of Stoicism, a central tenet is the value of responding with reason rather than allowing emotions to guide us. Emotions, while natural, can cloud our judgment, pushing us toward actions we might later regret. When we approach situations, particularly those involving disrespect, from a place of reason, we not only maintain our own peace, but also demonstrate wisdom, balance, and inner strength. In moments of conflict, it's tempting to respond with anger, frustration, or hurt. Yet, when we act purely on emotion, we lose sight of our deeper purpose and values. Stoicism teaches us that true strength comes from aligning our responses with reason and virtue, not from reacting impulsively. Ask yourself, will this reaction serve my highest self? Will it bring me closer to the peace I seek? By pausing to consider these questions, we honor the Stoic principle of measured response. How can we respond with reason in practice? Start by examining the situation objectively, as though you were an outsider looking in. What would a wise person, detached from the emotional charge, do in this situation? By stepping back, we gain clarity, freeing ourselves from the initial sting of the offense. This practice allows us to see the broader picture and choose a response that reflects our commitment to virtue rather than being driven by transient feelings. The Stoics believed that our responses should be grounded in virtues like wisdom, courage, and justice. Wisdom gives us the insight to recognize when a reaction would be harmful rather than helpful. Courage empowers us to face difficult interactions without shrinking or acting out of fear. Justice ensures that we treat others fairly, even when they may not have done the same. By embodying these virtues, we transform potentially negative interactions into opportunities to act in alignment with our highest principles. Does this mean we ignore our emotions? Certainly not. Stoicism does not call for the suppression of emotions, but for their management. Acknowledging our emotions gives us the insight needed to process them, but we don't have to act upon them impulsively. When we respond from a place of reason, we demonstrate to ourselves and others that our sense of self-worth is steady, not swayed by fleeting emotional tides. Responding with reason also encourages mutual respect. When we stay calm and reasonable in the face of provocation, we set a higher standard. Those around us often notice this restraint, and over time, they come to respect the unwavering strength it represents. Imagine the respect commanded by someone who, instead of lashing out, responds with thoughtful, deliberate words. This approach to handling conflict embodies the Stoic ideal of inner mastery. As we deepen our practice of responding with reason, we build a foundation of self-trust and stability. This brings us to the next essential lesson in Stoicism: the art of embracing acceptance. 7. Embrace acceptance. How often do we find ourselves wishing things were different or people behaved as we expected? One of the cornerstones of Stoicism is the acceptance of things beyond our control. Life, as the Stoics teach, is filled with events and interactions we cannot dictate. Embracing acceptance does not mean passive resignation, but rather a profound acknowledgement of reality as it is. This acceptance forms the basis of true inner peace, allowing us to respond to life's challenges with grace and resilience. Acceptance requires us to let go of expectations that others must act as we think they should, or that situations will unfold in our favor. Why should we burden ourselves with the weight of unmet expectations? When we demand that the world conform to our desires, we create internal friction, disappointment, and suffering. But when we accept that people and circumstances are often beyond our influence, we free ourselves from these unnecessary attachments. This acceptance doesn't weaken us, it strengthens us, making us more resilient in the face of adversity. How can we practice acceptance in moments of disrespect? Start by reminding yourself that you cannot control the behavior of others, only your response to it. Ask yourself, am I clinging to an expectation that others should behave as I think they should? Recognize that each individual has their own journey, their own struggles, and their own limitations. Their behavior reflects their character, not your worth. Acceptance in this sense is a compassionate acknowledgement of others' humanity, faults and all, without letting it disturb your inner peace. Acceptance also helps us let go of unnecessary judgments. The Stoics believed that many of our disturbances come not from events themselves, but from our judgments about them. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." When we stop judging situations as unfair or undeserved, we free ourselves from anger and resentment. Instead, we see challenges as opportunities to cultivate resilience, humility, and wisdom. Does acceptance mean we have to agree with or tolerate disrespect? No. Acceptance is not about passively enduring negativity or compromising our self-respect. It simply means that we recognize what we cannot control and focus our energy on what we can. If someone is consistently disrespectful, acceptance allows us to respond with calm clarity. We can choose to remove ourselves from toxic situations or to set boundaries without anger. In this way, acceptance serves as a guiding principle, reminding us that peace comes from within, not from changing others. Through acceptance, we nurture a state of equanimity, remaining steady regardless of others' actions. This inner calm is a source of quiet strength, often admired and respected by others. When we are able to meet life's ups and downs with an open heart and a balanced mind, we reflect the true essence of Stoicism. Now that we have explored the power of acceptance, let us deepen our understanding of empathy, another pillar of Stoicism that helps us build bridges even in difficult interactions. 8. Practice empathy. What if we could look beyond the surface and understand the struggles of others? Stoicism encourages us to see every person as a fellow human being, each carrying their own burdens, challenges, and moments of suffering. By practicing empathy, we transform moments of disrespect into opportunities for deeper understanding and connection. Instead of reacting to harsh words or thoughtless actions, we pause and consider what unseen struggles might be driving the other person's behavior. This is the Stoic way of responding with wisdom and compassion. Empathy requires us to step out of ourselves and see the world from another's perspective. We might ask ourselves, what could this person be experiencing that has led them to act this way? Are they perhaps dealing with stress, insecurity, or personal pain? While empathy doesn't excuse disrespectful behavior, it allows us to respond with patience rather than judgment. Recognizing the shared humanity in every individual, we soften our hearts without compromising our self-respect. How can we cultivate empathy in the face of conflict? One approach is to remind ourselves that everyone at times struggles with personal battles invisible to others. When someone acts hurtfully, they may be projecting their own fears or frustrations. The Stoics understood that we all share the same human nature with its strengths and vulnerabilities. By consciously remembering this shared connection, we create space for compassion even if we don't agree with the other person's actions. Empathy is also a means of freeing ourselves from resentment. By viewing others through a compassionate lens, we protect our own peace of mind. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that other people's actions were outside of his control, and that the best response was understanding, not hostility. He wrote, "Whenever you are about to find fault with someone, ask yourself the following question: what fault of mine most nearly resembles the one I am about to criticize?" This practice reminds us of our own imperfections and encourages humility in our responses. But does empathy mean we have to accept mistreatment? Not at all. Stoicism advocates for clear boundaries and self-respect. Empathy allows us to understand others' actions without condoning them. We can remain kind and composed while also choosing to distance ourselves from harmful behavior. Practicing empathy empowers us to respond from a place of inner strength, enabling us to handle conflict gracefully without compromising our values. Empathy builds bridges. When we approach situations with understanding rather than defensiveness, we often find that others soften in response. People feel respected, seen, and valued, a response that fosters mutual respect, even in difficult relationships. In embodying empathy, we not only elevate our own character but also set a powerful example of Stoic compassion. As we practice empathy, we strengthen our inner foundation and become more resilient in the face of adversity. This brings us to the next vital Stoic lesson: setting clear boundaries to protect our peace and dignity. 9. Set clear boundaries. How do we protect our peace while remaining respectful toward others? In Stoicism, setting boundaries is essential to maintaining inner stability and self-respect. Boundaries are not about shutting people out, but about defining what we will and will not accept in our interactions. By setting clear limits, we communicate our values and protect our mental and emotional well-being. Stoicism reminds us that while we cannot control others' actions, we have full authority over the situations we choose to accept. A well-defined boundary serves as a guidepost for our relationships, reminding others of our values and our self-respect. When we set boundaries, we assert our worth, signaling that we will not tolerate disrespect or toxicity. This does not mean we hold others in contempt. Rather, it means we prioritize our peace and dignity. Boundaries are an act of kindness toward ourselves, empowering us to engage with others from a place of strength rather than vulnerability. How can we establish and communicate boundaries effectively? Begin by identifying what behaviors you find unacceptable and why they affect your sense of peace. Perhaps certain actions undermine your values or make you feel undervalued. Clarity on what you need helps you assert these boundaries calmly and confidently. When communicating them, use language that is direct yet respectful, expressing your needs without anger or defensiveness. For example, you might say, "I value our relationship, and to maintain it, I need interactions to be respectful." The Stoics valued the image of a mountain, steadfast, unshakable, and resolute. Just as a mountain remains unmoved by the wind, setting boundaries enables us to stand firm against negativity or disrespect. When we embody this strength, we inspire respect in others, and they come to understand our commitment to self-respect and inner peace. By consistently upholding our boundaries, we show that we are unwavering in our values, much like the mountain that endures all seasons, yet remains rooted in place. Does setting boundaries mean we distance ourselves from others? Not necessarily. Boundaries are about creating conditions that allow for healthy, mutually respectful relationships. In fact, they often strengthen bonds by setting clear expectations, reducing misunderstandings, and fostering a sense of respect. True respect begins within. When we respect ourselves, others are more likely to do the same. Think of it as a gift to the relationship. Boundaries provide a clear framework, allowing both parties to engage with a greater understanding. Setting boundaries also protects our energy, allowing us to focus on what truly matters. In doing so, we become more resilient, less swayed by external influences, and more capable of responding to life with calmness and grace. As Epictetus once said, "No person is free who is not master of themselves." Boundaries are a step toward mastering ourselves, allowing us to lead lives of purpose and dignity. With our boundaries firmly in place, we now turn to the final transformative principle of Stoicism, choosing forgiveness as a path to inner freedom. 10. Choose forgiveness. What power lies in forgiveness, and how does it free us from the weight of resentment? In Stoicism, forgiveness is seen not as a weakness but as an act of profound strength and liberation. Choosing to forgive those who have wronged us allows us to release the heavy burdens of anger, bitterness, and resentment. While it does not excuse disrespectful behavior, forgiveness frees us from allowing others' actions to govern our emotions. By forgiving, we take back control, embodying a stoic resilience that rises above pettiness and holds fast to peace. Forgiveness is often misunderstood as a passive act, yet in reality, it requires courage and compassion. Why should we let go of the pain caused by others? Because holding on to it harms us more than anyone else. The Stoics understood that clinging to anger or revenge only distracts us from our pursuit of inner tranquility and self-improvement. When we forgive, we clear our minds and hearts of resentment, creating space for joy, clarity, and renewed purpose. It's an act of releasing ourselves from a prison built by past hurts. How can we embrace forgiveness when we feel deeply wronged? Start by shifting your perspective. See forgiveness as a gift to yourself, not as a concession to the other person. Remind yourself that their actions are a reflection of their character, not yours. This distinction helps us separate ourselves from the offense, enabling us to let go without losing our sense of self-respect. In moments of reflection, ask yourself, am I carrying resentment that no longer serves me? How would I feel if I chose to release it? By focusing on the peace and freedom that forgiveness brings, we strengthen our resolve to move forward. In Stoicism, forgiveness does not mean allowing others to walk over us. We can still set boundaries, assert our needs, and protect our dignity. Forgiveness is simply choosing not to let negative emotions dominate our inner life. It is the ultimate act of self-care, a recognition that we deserve peace and that clinging to resentment prevents us from attaining it. Epictetus often spoke of forgiveness as a path to serenity, emphasizing that those who forgive are truly free, unaffected by the unkindness of others. But does forgiving mean we forget? Not necessarily. Stoicism teaches that we learn from our experiences, even painful ones. Forgiveness doesn't erase the memory of what happened, but changes our relationship to it. Instead of letting past grievances dictate our mood or actions, we use them as points of growth and understanding. This approach allows us to retain wisdom without harboring bitterness, to hold memories without letting them harden our hearts. In choosing forgiveness, we demonstrate a strength and grace that others come to respect deeply. By showing that we can overcome pain without succumbing to anger, we embody the essence of Stoicism. Forgiveness is, in many ways, the highest form of respect for ourselves, a commitment to our own well-being and peace. As we conclude these 10 powerful Stoic lessons, it becomes clear that handling disrespect with dignity is not about controlling others, but about mastering ourselves. By cultivating calm, broadening our perspective, practicing empathy, and setting clear boundaries, we rise above petty conflicts and demonstrate a strength that naturally commands respect. Choosing forgiveness as our ultimate act of freedom shows others and ourselves that we have the power to transcend adversity without letting it define us. Embracing these principles is a journey, one that requires patience, practice, and reflection. Each lesson builds upon the next, guiding us toward a life of resilience, humility, and inner peace. Imagine becoming the person others look to for calmness, understanding, and wisdom. Someone who embodies Stoicism not just in thought, but in action. If you found these insights valuable, leave a comment below with your thoughts or personal experiences. Subscribe to continue exploring more about Stoicism, and share this video with anyone who could benefit from its teachings. Thank you for joining us on this journey, and may your path be filled with wisdom, peace, and purpose.